hires that we're going to start with. This is kind of always the exciting part of our job, is to get to meet new people. So I'm going to turn it over to our highly esteemed middle school principal to come on up.
Good evening. Shining on the mic here. So I am enthusiastically recommending for your approval the employment of Mrs. Samantha Miller for a teaching position. Her 2026, can't believe we're already there, assignment will be a special education teacher at Williamston Middle School. In the 2 rounds of interviews, she was interviewed by teachers, administrators, and ancillary staff. Mrs. Miller demonstrated her expertise in differentiated instruction and ability to work with diverse learners in a middle school setting. Mrs. Miller's work experience actually started at Williamston Middle School in 2015, and shortly after 2 years, she left to travel with her family to Ohio and worked in Ohio at Springboro Junior High as an intervention specialist until 2023. And during her reference checks, it was noted that Samantha Miller's vision and organizational skills led to meaningful growth within the special education department and ultimately earned her a leadership role. And in addition, she was described as a teacher who consistently demonstrates patience, adaptability, and deep commitment to meeting each student where they are, ensuring they receive the individualized support they need to succeed. So this is definitely a good fit for us at Williamston Middle School. With no reservation, I recommend that the board approve Mrs. Samantha Miller's hire as a special education teacher for Williamston Community Schools.
Do we have any questions? Okay, can I entertain a motion?
I make a motion that the Williamston Community Schools Board of Education hire Samantha Miller to be a teacher starting with the 2025-2026 school year.
Second it.
Okay, I kind of heard Deb first, so I'm going to give it to Deb. So first Sarah, second Deb. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations and welcome. We have one more hire. I know she is out of town. Is there someone here to introduce her, or do we?
Well,
you have all the information that
Yeah.
is in your packet to read?
She'll be brought back to the board in August formally to
Okay.
be introduced, so.
Are there any questions about what you read? Maya, am I saying her name right? Maya Boyce?
Boys, yeah.
Boys? All right, I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion that the Williamston Community Schools Board of Education hire Maya Boyes as a counselor, starting with the 2025-26 school year. Her hiring is contingent upon successful completion of her degree and state certification exam.
Second. So I have a first Chris, second Heather. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. And we can go congratulate our new hire. Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to citizen comments. Do we have any citizens in the audience that would like to address the board? No. All right, moving on to celebrations. Adam.
Well, good evening, board members. We're getting into that time of year where events are coming in fast and furious, and often so many things that I'll start to miss some stuff, not intentionally, but there's a lot to celebrate this time of year, and so I'll do my best to keep you updated on as many highlights as possible. Want to start off this evening by just making sure to recognize this is Educator Appreciation Week / month, depending on how you interpret this, but a good opportunity to reflect on the outstanding team that we have in our district and the immense contributions they make to the success of our students. Spend all day talking about that in great detail, but I think inherently at these meetings, one of the things we do is recognize the hard work their hard work through the accomplishments of our staff and students and our school district every time we have one of these meetings. And so I know the board is well appraised of all those efforts and the continued dedication and commitment to excellence by all members of our staff. Look forward to the extent that you can, maybe seeing some board members this week at the appreciation lunches. And we may or may not have our staff appreciation gifts that the board purchased for staff, depending on where those are in transit as we speak. I know at least one box is on the way right now. So it's never simple, but we got caught up in a little bit of the tariff thing. So, but whether it's tomorrow or later this week, we'll make sure to get those out on behalf of the board, and hope our staff likes what the board got them as a thank you token this year. Moving on to celebrations that are listed on the website. So the first happened just at the end of last week. And that was the elementary art exhibit. Miss Angie Herrick put together quite the art show, to say the least. Elementary artwork from young 5s through 5th grade. Covered the Explorer Gymnasium, all through the Explorer building, around the circle, and into one of the rooms, which was the Glow Room, which was a collaborative effort between Heather Lewis, our mental health specialist, and Angie in terms of putting forth some of those SEL lessons that students have learned into an artistic format. So extremely impressive, every different medium of visual art you could think of, ceramics, illustrations, drawings, and all done by elementary students. And as Ms. Herrick noted at the art exhibit, the kids are putting in all these efforts over the course of the year. Why not show them off? And it was really cool to see a lot of community members present for that. Red Cedar Garden Club was there, Kiwanis Club was there. Just a really nice event, a really nice turnout, and impressive to say the least. In keeping with the Fine Arts theme, we had our annual Fine Arts Fest a couple weeks ago. This has become one of our most highly attended events of the year. Outside of maybe graduation and home football games, it's hard to come up with anything that draws more people into one of our schools for a singular event. And again, a great representation of student visual artwork from throughout the district, tied into the art competition that takes place every spring. And then obviously all of our various musical performing arts contribute to the musical portion of the evening. Even had the color guard out there this year for a part of that performance. So really nice job. A lot of teachers put work into this all year to organize this event that takes place in just a couple hours, but it's really a year's worth of planning to make all this happen, and it was another fantastic evening. Moving on to the next story on the website, Cassandra Eberhardt, who was the Region 6 Teacher of the Year, state finalist for overall Teacher of the Year, had an opportunity to present to the State Board of Education last month. Because of her role, she's had an opportunity to kind of experience some of the inner workings of the state board, which are what they are, I suppose. But it's been interesting to kind of debrief with her about what that's been like to sit at that table and kind of take in what that whole dynamic looks like. Her presentation, which we've connected to the story if you're interested in watching it, was on the student mental health supports that we have in Williamston, particularly at the middle school, and how that is shaping not only the positive impact it's having for students, but also for staff as well, knowing that they have those resources to lean on, and they're not on an island when they need those additional supports for students. So it's a really nice presentation. It speaks highly of the district, highly of Williamston Middle School, and highly of Cassandra to go there and talk in front of that audience and really speak highly to what she's doing and what her school is doing. And then lastly, one that I'm a little bit, I take a little bit of personal pride in, is our first robotics team. Got as far as they have ever gotten, and again, remember, this is a new initiative in Williamston, and they are competing against schools that have been doing this for a long time and are in some cases, extravagantly financed, to put it lightly. But they were able to get to the district semis this year at the Kentwood event, and they have a really good shot based on the group that's moving up from the middle school next year to really make a push to qualify for states next year, which again, when you look back to where we were a couple of years ago, we had a tiny robot with a wooden arm that broke off and then it didn't move, and so we have come a long way from where this started. I don't know if you can go down, maybe Dave, a little bit. Keep scrolling down. So right up there, maybe, yep. So right there, there's a link here you can click, and you can watch a little bit of what.
Start in 3, 2.
It's okay to play it if it lets you, just for a few seconds.
2, 1, go! And we're off in our autonomous. Match number 5. We got a 3-point choral on the red. We got a 7-point choral on the blue side. And a 7-pointer out for the Red Alliance. Looks like the Robo Beavers are going to score a processor algae for 6 points as we transition to teleop. Step up and dive. It's first.
So
Reef skate.
Underwater
Blue Alliance
when
with
they
the
were trying to
advantage out of
move,
autonomous.
Items onto, like I think they were like rebuilding a coral reef.
As they're trying to
hanging
shoot
things
top
on
shelf,
and
but
then
it
there was
looks
something else
like
they were doing with the ball, which I wasn't quite
244
sure.
Robodogs
They had to shoot the
3D.
ball
They've got
somewhere,
a
and
piece of
somebody
coral
got it and
stuck
threw it
right
into
in the
another
middle of
thing.
their machine.
Not exactly sure how that was
They're gonna
supposed
play
to
some
work, but we
defense
did really
on the
well,
red end.
whatever it was.
Williamston
So we
Vespene
invested
gobbling
this
up
year
some
in
algae.
new
Feeding
wheels
it
for
in the
robot that allowed
processor.
it to move in different directions.
As
and
Eddie
much
Circuits
quicker
looking to
than it
go
had
top
been
shelf.
in other
5 points
years.
on the red reef.
So that's good. You can
Robo
stop it there. But if
Beavers
you wanna kinda
and
see
their-
what I think that was in the semifinals. So if you want to see what a first robotics match looks like, we had that on the link. And then Dave, you can go back to the story as well. And then maybe scroll up a little bit. So I got a pretty cool video of how they did right there, so that link. And that'll kind of show you what they had to do. They had to go to get the robot to lift
This
itself
man
up.
had a bad idea.
Okay, now set, all you do is just let your controller down and walk away.
And it's
So
level
that was
too.
a big engineering feat to accomplish. Maybe the first thing I've been watching is getting the robot off the ground. And they're extremely large and very, very heavy. So being able to pull something like that off is pretty challenging. And that's the last thing you do in one of the matches is try to get you go to the center of the arena and then you try to get the robot lifted up off the ground and you get points for that, obviously. So really kudos to Coach Reeve and the students on the team. Jay Dittman is a coach for the middle school team, and he's really been instrumental too in kind of growing interest there. And as you know, Sean Ferguson continues to coach the Explorer Elementary team. So we have a nice pipeline, students moving up through that, and it's a great competitive angle to our K-12 STEAM initiative for kids that want to try something different in a more competitive format. Moving off of the website, some other things that have happened recently. The Quiz Bowl team at the high school has kind of been a bit of a dynasty over the last several years. This year is no different. They finished number 3 in the state and then went on to compete in the national finals in Chicago where they placed 21st in the country. So congratulations to our high school Quiz Bowl team. We also had prom on Saturday. I got no phone calls all weekend, so I'm chalking that up to a successful event. It was actually our largest prom in recent memory, though, so a lot of kids came out for it, which is a good sign for a lot of reasons, and looked like overall they had a good time.
It looked like the Lansing State Journal came out as well.
Yeah, the journal's out there as well to take pictures, and unlike last year, I don't think any of the SROs were in any photos, because last year was pretty funny. Like every picture had a police officer in it, so like we had them on complete lockdown. But this year, I guess they got themselves out of the camera. But anyway, yeah, no, it was a good event. Lots of kids were there, and no problems, and looked like they had a good time. And then thanks to the Williamston Schools Foundation on Saturday is their big event of the year, supporting academic programs and innovation in the schools through their golf outing. Very successful event, lots of participants, and it looked like it was a little chilly, but it wasn't raining, and looks like everybody out there had a good time. In a strange kind of celebration, I also want to acknowledge that we were fortunate to receive a grant this year called the, I'll never get the name right, the Roman Teacher Aid Kit, or RTAC Kit. I'll kind of pass it around if you're interested in seeing what's in there. It's kind of a next level Stop the Bleed kit, which, as the board knows, we've had those for years. In fact, we were one of the first districts in the state to go through the Stop the Bleed program and receive those supplies many, many years ago. But the RTAC kit has some additional Stop the Bleed equipment in there that we didn't have before, and we're starting to roll those out throughout the district. We now have those kits in all of our school buses. We've trained all our drivers on that. So we actually had a situation where a student had a pretty significant leg injury last week, and we actually used some of the items in the RTAC kit to render first aid initially while until the student was able to be transported to the hospital. So again, just one of those situations where we hope we don't use that stuff, but we do have it, and the fact that we have it and it was used properly, I think speaks highly to the fact that our response protocol are in place and work. So again, we'll pass that around if you're interested in seeing what's in there. And then I think lastly, as part of the meeting, your end of the year events calendar, Betsy always does a great job of compiling that, and so that's in your board book as well for reference as the year comes to a close, and there's a lot of things going on that you might be interested in attending. I'm going to pause there. Are there any questions or anything I might have missed that was a celebration the last couple of weeks?
I do want, we do have 2 people that are doing the senior awards night, correct? Is that Heather and Amanda, or Heather and Deb? And then, do we have all of the people we need to help with the scholarships? Reading of the scholarships,
I haven't heard back from Michelle, and she was going to contact another volunteer.
Did we have people that volunteered for that?
I did it, turned them in already.
It was in an email. Yeah.
It was?
So we usually need 2 people. So Deb volunteered. Okay, so typically I've had the U2 sit that out because it's
Yes,
scholarship
yeah,
money for MSU, U of M, or
Oh.
LCC. So I feel like that's a
Yeah,
conflict for you.
What night is it?
Do you have a senior?
Not this year, so I can do it this year.
Do you?
I do not.
So so do you want to, okay, she asked first, that's why I'm just pointing at her, is that all right?
Yeah.
So we'll have Deb and Amanda do the scholarships if we need,
Michelle Smith.
okay, if we need one more, Dave will
She already has
be
them.
the third.
She didn't have any for LCC unless she got them by Friday, but there weren't. Just U of M.
They extended the deadline on that one.
Do they?
Okay, good.
Okay, so we have people if we need, if we have that. I think that's all and then we'll talk about the ice cream social at the end, just to make sure we have people there too. Okay, if that's all set, we can move on. We do not have an educational update. We have superintendent's report, so I'm gonna have Adam keep going.
So there's actually 2 ed updates tonight, but they'll be later on in the agenda, tucked in with your handbook, so they'll happen concurrently. The superintendent's report for tonight, first thing is just a quick correction memo from last meeting. The memo that was the supporting documentation as part of the bids for the school bus purchase had the wrong funding line, so we're putting this in this meeting's agenda just to make sure that in the record there's no confusion over the funding that's being drawn from to pay for the new school bus. This is what was planned for. Just want to make sure that, again, the record's clear on that. The next memo in your packet is, just for the record again, providing authority to Dr. Delp next year to make decisions on my behalf in the event that I'm unavailable, either planned or unplanned, obviously for a short duration of time. Anything for a longer period of time would obviously require board action, but this could be anything from I'm tied up in a situation out of town, or the one I always dread the most is I oversleep on a night where there's a snow day and like the entire mid-Michigan area is closed and Williamston hasn't been closed, and so that was, it's always the one I'm worried about. I haven't, but it only takes once, right? So
When?
it's
And
Murphy's
I feel
Law.
like you're up at probably
Yeah,
4:30 in
no,
the
I
morning
mean,
or
that's
something.
generally the case, but you never know. So anyway, just in those particular circumstances, Steve will be our senior administrator next year, and just letting the board know that he'll have the authority to make those decisions within the scope of the responsibilities of the superintendent per policy. Upcoming meetings, on the 19th of May will be our next regular board meeting, and that'll be the middle school handbook and education update. On the 27th of May is our next Finance and Facilities Committee meeting, and on the 2nd of June will be a regular board meeting that'll include the high school and preschool handbook and ed updates, as well as the budget amendment for the final budget amendment for this school year and the projected budget for next year. As far as bond updates go, the most important thing right now is that we've actually started work on our first project. So that was site work began at the tennis courts. They've been out there busy putting up temporary fences and cutting down trees and bushes in preparation for that project, officially starting on the 14th of May. And so it's kind of exciting to see the first of many bond projects actually start. Otherwise, work continues on the design of Explorer Elementary. There's another design meeting almost weekly now, trying to come up with a more granular detail as we kind of finalize what that'll look like, and then hope to get something to the board by the end of June, so you can kind of see where that project is heading. Otherwise, that is the report for this evening, pending any questions.
I do just want to clarify that Steve is kind of stepping in and not taking over Kelly's role, but will just be that person because Kelly has decided to go on and better herself and retire and looking for greener pasture somewhere. So that's why that change is there, just to make sure everybody's aware. Board policy.
Yeah, we met on April 14th. It was a pretty quick, straightforward meeting. We focused primarily on updating some financial policies. The majority of those were updates directly from Troon, which you'll find in your board book. We also discussed, again, the student representation on the board, so you can look over where we ended up on that, but pretty straightforward meeting.
Okay. And we're going to be discussing them tonight anyway,
Yep.
Correct? All right. Any questions about that? All those policies are up for discussion, so we'll see them again later tonight. Okay, moving right along, we have our famous superintendent for the ISD with us today to give us the ISD's board presentation. We do approve the ISD's what is it? Finance budget. Thank you. Every year, we Adam and I and Chris being the finance person, thought it would be a really good idea to have Jason come out and kind of discuss, all the different things that are happening at the federal level, and then how some of the special ed funding was redistributed. Is that a good word to say? Redistributed? So, welcome. You can take it away.
Thanks so much. So first and foremost, as a parent of a student here, a first grader, let me say thank you for all that you do to support the staff, the students, and the entire community. I know being a board member is not necessarily a glorious job, but I will promise you that it makes a tremendous impact when you see school districts that are doing wonderful things to make sure that their students have opportunities to succeed. So as a parent, let me say thank you for that. And Mrs. Fander does a fantastic job providing supports when we need those for our oldest daughter. We'll have another one coming here in a couple of years, so be excited about that. So as mentioned, Public Act 234-2004 provides that intermediate school districts have to provide information with respect to their budget by May 1st to the local school districts. School districts then by June 1st have to provide a resolution of support or a resolution in opposition with respect to the budget. So it's not a passage, but it happens as necessarily by all the districts. It's something our board actually has to pass by June 30th, as does every other school district in the state, as you know, but we take those resolutions as input from the local districts. If it is not a resolution in support, you actually have to then list out what areas you would have concerns with respect to the general education budget. So just kind of the basics with respect to that. I believe inside your packet, I believe Barb and Pat have already talked, so the information's already in there. So I will go through this. If there's questions, please stop me at any point in time, but I will try to go through this. For some of you, we've been through this before, because I come about every year. But if there's something new in here, please let me know. So 3 budgets we have within the ISD. We have our general education budget, our special education budget, and our CTE budget. The law requires we provide our general education budget to you. The information that's provided is with respect to the best information we had when we put this together, looking back to our April meeting. At that point in time, all we had was the governor's recommendations. Since that point, we have seen the Senate provide now a budget last week. The House has provided what is a continuation budget. I would not take that as a serious attempt with respect to the overall school aid budget. We hope that they will be releasing something here more serious in the upcoming weeks. Reasonably speaking, with the Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference on May 16th, if I remember correct, usually things aren't hammered out till after that point in time, but considering we've not seen the House budget, I think this is a year we will probably not have a budget prior to July 1st. As we've enjoyed all but 2 years since 2011 when that was a bipartisan effort. So probably not news for you, but just the same things that we're seeing and trying to set the standards, how to release some of this information. Again, this was, at that point in time, the best information we had was the governor's budget. So we were looking at about $57 million in expenditures and revenues with respect to our overall budget, early childhood, instructional programs, the supports we collaborate with local districts on to maximize resources, and then ways that we try to improve student outcomes are kind of the big 4 areas. If you were to start with last year's budget and work forward to see how are we doing, last year's budget, when I brought it to you at this point in time, showed only about $49 million in total revenues. We ended up with over $60 million. That's because of a couple of things. First and foremost, as I mentioned, the budgets are not finalized when we provide this information, so there'll be some things that we'll see that will obviously change where our best guesses are at from today. But last year we had $6 million of GSRP funding that was brought on after that point in time. The 97G grant, which is for the MySecure, which provides a base layer of security, cybersecurity for all districts in the state that are interested in having that, was awarded. So those dollars continue to come. And then there was additional sub-services. Let me start by saying this. Prior to the pandemic, sub-services wasn't a big a deal. Post-pandemic, it's a real deal. We still struggle. All of our districts struggle. So it is hard to figure out, but that's money that comes in and goes directly out. So that's just a direct flow through with respect to the consortium we have. But that's why you had an $11 million addition with respect to last year's budget from where we had projected to where we ended up. And then you can see the proposed budget for this year with respect to what we're projecting at this point in time for revenues. Let's dig a little bit into those revenues. So with respect to where do the revenues come from, the primary source, of course, is from the state. Incoming and other has to do with those dollars, just like I mentioned for the substitute service, where those are dollars that are coming in and flowing right back out. We have local dollars, which would be the tax revenues, and then we do have a small amount of the general fund budget that is federal revenues. We'll talk a little bit more about federal and the challenges we're seeing there in a little bit. With respect to where those expenses go, instructional programs, obviously outgoing and other, again, when we think about shared services, collaboration, substitute services, transportation consortiums, those types of aspects, a lot of the dollars flow right back out, and then of course support services we provide within those instructional areas. So just kind of the basics of where those revenues come, where the expenses go. So if we dig into the revenues a little more specifically, we generate about $2.4 million from a small millage that is levied by the ISD, which is a little bit less than 2 mils, or 0.2 mils, excuse me. And so we're expecting that to be able to come in and continue from a sustainable revenue standpoint. Beyond that, I kind of mentioned a couple other things. Section 81A, which is the other unrestricted spot we typically get, we're holding steady. We're uncertain where that's going to end up. The governor's budget didn't give us a tremendous amount of insight. The Senate's budget, I think, gives us at least 2 legs of the stool, where we would hope that that would see something that would be similar to what local districts see in the per pupil increase. But until that's finalized, we've tried to be very conservative with respect to our budgeting practices. And then the closeout of the MySecure grant, I mentioned we had some additional funds that came in last year. That grant will be closed out, so you're seeing less revenue, which is a major source with respect to where this budget is at. So not necessarily additional increases, just less revenue. We actually partner with MAISA and the team at MySecure to work through and provide those supports statewide. When we look at the expenses, one of the things you will see is an increased expense with respect to a 0.5 FTE in math. That is, we are combining with some funds from CTE. Our math scores in the county, in the ISD, are not where we wish they would have to be. So federal funds actually designate with where we are at. We have to increase our spending out of CTE funds. With respect to math, we don't have enough money in CTE to make that a full-time position, so we're combining, recognizing that these needs are in general education and CTE, and so bringing that position together to make it a full-time position, which is much more desirable as we're trying to find staff members. Beyond that, the early college program last summer we hit the pause on, and that was with respect to the shift that you had seen from the state when the budget came through. As you're aware, students are able to graduate and walk across the stage, and community college has become free. They did not give that same grace to schools, high schools, and ISDs that have students enrolled in either dual enrollment or early college programs. And so it became an area that we hit the pause on as superintendents actually last August. We had that conversation. So we've done a lot of research. We continue to advocate. That is an area that you will see the Senate has actually had some deep conversations around. So we are trying to advocate on behalf of the fact when we look at the number of students that come out of high schools that are enrolled in college programs and why we believe they should be eligible for those funds as well. We are also bargaining our contracts at this point in time, as many other districts are. So let's wish us luck in hoping that we get those budgets or those contracts done, which will help our budget as well as we look to the future. And then beyond that, we are intentionally looking at ways that we can continue to combine and think about the efficiencies that we can gain from innovative technologies, primarily AI. When we look at the impact it can have on both operations and instruction, we think this is an area we need to be involved with. We believe our students will be impacted by this in their lives, and so it's up to us to have that moral courage to think about how can we use this to influence those opportunities for the students, how do we embed that into their frameworks, and continue to support local districts who are also going through those same struggles. So we'll talk about a couple of the areas. First, our MTSS, Student Instructional Services, about $7.4 million, a smaller bucket with respect to the overall funds. But no doubt anything that is something that is super important, especially an area that was talked about earlier, school mental health services. On the sheet that's in front of you, I actually set out, that is respect to our profiles of service that we provide annually. You can actually see in the bottom of the sheet the number of contacts we've had for students there in Williamston specifically around mental health services. Thankfully, in both budgets, we've seen both the Senate and the governor's budget that has continued to be a priority. Mental health supports for students is a real thing. We continue to lift that up. That's something we really want to make sure that we continue to provide supports for. Going back just 4 or 5 years ago, we had no staff. We have 12 staff currently, and every year we have seen an increase in the number of students that are served, as well as the number of contacts. Contacts could be a student that's receiving services multiple times, so that's not necessarily the number of students, that's the number of contacts that they've had. Some students require more contacts than others, which is why we try to provide that information from that basis. But last year we had over 680 students that were served throughout the ISD. We will surpass that this year, and we have waiting lists in every school in the ISD at this point in time. Wish that wasn't the case. It's our realities now. Instructional programs, I'll move into that area. When we think about our Central Michigan substitute system, kind of referenced that earlier, that has been an area that's continued to grow. That is the lion's share when you look at what's going on. It is huge when we look at sub-costs. Again, prior to the pandemic, we probably as schools had enjoyed sub-costs that were less than what they should have been, considering many of our substitute daily wages hadn't really seen a change in over 15, 20 years. So we were paying around $80, $85 prior to the pandemic. Post-pandemic, that is no longer our reality. And so you've seen some school districts that are continuing to pay over $200 and up to $250 a day for daily subs. Significantly different environment. Ingham Academy is a really neat program that we have partnered with the county on for adjudicated youth. Super cool, amazing opportunity for students that typically come in with little to no credit. Usually their sophomore or junior year, and we work with, in partnership with the courts, with Peckham and with Highfields to provide opportunities for those students to actually graduate. So neat opportunity with respect to that program's there. We jump into early childhood programs, which is the largest of our programs and services that we have within inside the budget. This is our early childhood. When we think about GSRP, the free pre-K for all, there's been a continued expansion for that, which is super cool to see. We know the investment in these dollars at the early age pays off dividends later, and so we've been thankful that we've seen that support from all areas inside the legislature and the governor at this point with respect to the current budget as well as our last budget. So we're going to continue to believe that that's going to be an area that will be supported. Very thankful for that. We know that's making a difference. Instructional, that's our DSA team. That's where our AI integration pilot will come from. I think that's a lot of supports that are provided to districts with respect to the data and trying to provide that in manageable ways. We also provide data days for districts to be able to come in, talk about what data is there. We sort through things from aligning that with whether it's our MyKit programs or looking at even our early warning systems and trying to figure out what's the best way to support the students you have. And then finally, the other is a whole conglomeration of different areas, from shared services that we provide, from technology, business services, pupil accounting, which is required by statute, as well as StarNet, which is the internet-based consortium that we have that is supporting internet services for our districts throughout the area. So some really cool ways that we try to gain efficiencies of scale by maximizing all of the districts together and then driving down costs that benefit our local districts. So that is kind of the base with respect to the budget in and of itself. As I referenced earlier, we provided that 2 local districts by May 1st. We asked for a resolution of support by June 1st, and then we will pass our budget prior to June 30th, as is required by statute. There were a couple of areas, not with respect to the budget, that I'll move into if that's all right, unless there are some questions on the budget.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You did a great job explaining the programs and where the bulk of money is going. Excuse me, but can you talk a little bit more specifically as to how this affects Williamston?
So I can talk a lot about a couple of different areas. Is there something that you want to narrow in on that I can maybe give some examples for? Because this is a wide, this is a wide question. I want to make sure I'm answering it.
Very broad.
Yes, I want to make sure I'm answering it the right way.
Yeah.
So is there anything specific that you'd like me to target? Okay, so let me start by the sheet that you got in front of you. All right, so the front side of the sheet is kind of some basic information. The back side of the sheet has some special ed and CT. If you were to go back to the front side of the sheet, what you're going to see on the bottom of the sheet, I'll just hit a couple of categories. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I remember the categories. You've got mental health specialists. Those are mental health contacts, that number. Our mental health specialists are providing supports directly to students here in Williamston. The next category over is professional development hours. That's the number of hours that have been provided to Williamston staff members around a variety of topics. It could be math supports, it could be English literature, it could be early warning systems, it could be technology infused, it could be a variety of the topics that we provide out of our PD catalog in support of local districts. So those are direct ways that we try to bring back connections, which is, I think, even though we provided this earlier this year, you probably already saw this. Why I'm handing this out is because I think this helps. Oh, that's where that's going. Oh, that's the difference that it's making actually in our district here. And I think that's important for people to see that firsthand. So that information is your district's information. We provide that to every district individually just for that exact reason, but I think it's important to know. Beyond that, when we think about shared services, we continue to have shared services. I mentioned the internet, and Adam, I'm gonna mess this up. Is it AP or payroll?
It's payroll.
Payroll, all right. I was going to say AP. So another shared service example is we provide supports to Williamston with respect to payroll. Again, efficiencies and economies of scale and trying to provide some of those redundancies and supports that help with our local districts. So we try to do that in a variety of ways. For every district, it looks a little bit different. For our smaller districts, they lean in usually a little bit heavier, again, just from some of the efficiencies they can gain. But we provide supports in a wide variety of ways for every one of our districts. Yeah. Any other questions?
So I'm gonna ask just clarifying questions. So it has, under special education, it has special education students served.
Yes.
So that's not how many, is that how many students, or is that how many contacts with
That is
students?
actually the number of students here at Williamston that are served. We have about 7,000 students in the ISD, a little over 7,000 students in the ISD with IEPs. And so those are students that would be itinerant staff members that are actually coming out to provide services. So it could be speech, it could be PT, OT, it could be students that are served in a variety of different programs. It doesn't necessarily have to be those students that are here, but those are Williamston students that are being served by Ingham ISD staff members. And you can see the number of students enrolled at Hartwood, that's on that as well. So those would be included in that category.
Yeah, so some of the programs that are on here are programs that our students go to
Attend, yeah.
at the ISD.
Not that you would be passionate about early childhood at all, but it might include some of the early childhood special education services as well.
Any other questions about the budget before he moves on to the next piece? Okay.
All right, so a couple other topics I want to touch on. First is with respect to our special education services plan. We have been, for the last 3 years, working through ways to improve our special education services and then the distribution plan of how dollars work through. This has been a lengthy process because it's complex. And I say that, if it were simple, right, we would have solved that much faster. It has been an arduous process to look at, in aggregate, how are the 42,000 students throughout this ISD served, those 7,000 students with IEPs. How do we come up with a better model when we think about ways that we service students? Our current model had been formulated in 1998 and really hadn't seen a major overhaul since that point in time. Now, if we think about special education services for students, we know significantly more information than what we knew in 1998. But the reason it hasn't really been changed or seen a significant overhaul is because it's hard. It's very difficult to go through, thus the 3-year process. So when we started out with that, we had a couple of goals that we established. And that 3-year process included superintendents. We had a superintendent's work group. We've had other work groups that have come together from business managers and special education directors that have been involved at different aspects of the process as well. But we started with, first and foremost, compliance. Going back to the 1920 school year, our ISD was listed as the worst ISD in the state with respect to compliance. That is not a spot you want to be. We had to change. We didn't have options with respect to that. We have gotten better, which is something to celebrate. We're still not there yet. There are ways we need to continue to get better. But compliance is rated with respect to an aggregate of what's happening in the ISD. So it's not necessarily just our ISD, it's all of our locals as well. So that information is put together. And so part of our role as an ISD at times is to hopefully be more carrot than stick. Sometimes we have to be stick. And so we've had to refine some of our measures with respect to compliance, and we're still trying to work through that. That is hard. But make no mistake, we were at a position that was bad. And that's the best way I can put it. Out of 56 ISDs, we were rated 56th. That was a lot of fun having that information when the state delivered that to us. So we had to change with respect to our process. Part of that compliance aspect comes back to the overall strategy of what was established again, looking at, it was 1998 when the plan was put together, and it's after 2020 and we haven't made changes. When you know better, you need to do better. We hadn't instituted that. So some of that was an equity aspect when we looked at how students were being served. ASD was rated at about 1 in 75 to 1 in 80 students in 1998. The rates for ASD identification are less than 1 in 40 at this point in time. Services for students have significantly changed as we have better data on how to provide supports for those with ASD. We had not made some of those adjustments. So our model was very unique in the fact that it was a non-centralized model distributing all of the funds pretty much to the local school districts in a manner that was very interesting as well, which came into one of the third aspects, our legal implications. Genesee ISD had actually been sued by a local school district based on their model of how they were distributing funds. Our model was almost the exact same. We would not have lasted the lawsuit, and we did have some districts that were ready to sue us. We would have lost, and we would have not been able to provide any input or go through the process we did. We committed to a process to try to figure out how to make it better, which was something that held off the lawsuits at that point in time, which was an important thing for us. I think it's better for us to make decisions than it is for the state to actually write the service plan, which is what they did for Genesee ISD. In Genesee ISD's situation, they are not allowed to change, edit, adjust their service delivery plan in any way, shape, or form without the state superintendent actually rewriting it for them. Giving up that power and control is a poor spot to be when we think about leadership, because that means somebody who doesn't know us, who's not aware of what we're doing, is going to make decisions for us. I think that's wrong, which was part of that challenge and trying to figure out how do we get better at this. And so one of the things that I think was important for us to look at is the overall fiscal implications. How do we fund and support students, as well as overall fiscal stewardship of what was happening as well, which came into that fourth goal area that we evaluated. The ISD was in a position that it was the lowest of 56 ISDs, the lowest fund balance of special education in the state. We have a $105 million special education plan with respect to dollars that come in. We have $443,000 in the fund balance.
That's bad.
To say that's bad would be an understatement. There is no
It's kind of
backstop.
where we were.
If an ISD goes under, the local districts cough up immediately. That's not good. In my conversation with Dr. Rice, which was pretty direct, Superintendent Malama, that can't continue. It's not a good spot to be. That's the way we had lived for years. It was on the razor's edge. It had worked, but not necessarily well. So we had a series of things that complicated trying to figure out how to get better. Let me say this. We worked very hard. I can't tell you standing here in front of you that I think what we ended on is perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's a significant improvement. I think it's met where those outcomes are at, and we've committed to look at this on a much more regular basis as opposed to going 27 years before changing things. And I think that's part of where this process has to end up. It has implications for local districts when we think about best practices for students and how they're served. It also has implications and how we all continue to work together. And I think that's important as well. The ISD, since the point in time that the plan started, has also now started to operate the Beekman Center. The Beekman Center was operated by the Lansing School District. It was actually built in 1968. The ISD in 1968 gave a $1.4 million loan to the Lansing School District to operate Beekman Center, actually buy the land and build it. The Beekman Center was the first school in the world to provide center-based programs for students. And so we are transitioning back to, again, a different spot, which I think from an equity position is important for us because we know that students at Beekman were not being provided the same level of services that students at Hartwood were being provided. And so being able to make sure that all students, regardless of what district they're from, are provided similar services has been an important facet for us as we continue to look at and evaluate this plan. It's been hard, it's been long. I've appreciated very honest conversations with many of our superintendents. I think our superintendents would all agree that we are significantly more educated on what this plan was, because I think when we started, we weren't in that position. But now we are coming to fruition. As part of the plan, we have submitted it to the state. The state actually has to approve it. We submitted this in January. If we have this approved by August or September, I would be happy. If that tells you how fast the state operates with this. So we won't have that officially approved until that point in time. We are stair-stepping in aspects of that model to work on that time frame, so it won't be fully engaged until after the 27 school year. But the data that we used to make our best decisions when we looked at this was the data from the 22-23 school year with respect to our students. What questions might you have? Adam, is there anything else you wanted me to hit on? I want to make sure.
On that topic?
Yes.
No.
Did you have somebody else to interrupt?
So this is a lot to digest, and the ISD, like the budget that he talked about first, is kind of the same way we do our budget. This part is, can be a little bit more complicated. So if you have questions in the future, or like next week, or we're not actually passing this part, this is just an explanation, because it does affect us. But it is important that you understand it, because we do have a lot of students that benefit from these programs, and it is how we get our special ed funding. So if you have questions in the future, or you think of things, we can either get you in touch with Jason, or if Sarah can help answer those, our financial Sarah, or even Adam. We're gonna wanna make sure that as a community, we understand this. So don't worry if you don't have questions right now. Sleep on it, think about it, and we can get those answered.
For sure. Another topic I want to hit on, which I think is important, and I've used this as an opportunity as I've been visiting local districts, is the impact with respect to federal funds. So there's a couple of topics that I think are very important for, in your role as local board members, to be in tune with. The first is Medicaid. So Medicaid brings in aggregate about $6 million into the ISD. In aggregate, that means for all the costs with respect to what happens in the ISD, so this impacts all of our local districts, there's about $6 million that's brought in. Again, I referenced earlier, we have over 7,000 students that have IEPs inside the ISD. Over 62% of them are Medicaid eligible. Medicaid directly goes to pay for services for students with IEPs. So if Jason is a student with an IEP and it says that Jason is to receive 30 minutes of occupational therapy every 2 weeks, the law means that Jason has to receive 30 minutes of occupational therapy every 2 weeks. If you do not provide that, this is where I mentioned compliance earlier, right? We talked about the challenges we had as an ISD with compliance. There will be a process you'll go through. The state will investigate. More than likely you will lose. It's pretty straightforward and clear on some of those. You didn't provide it, or you did. You didn't. And you will actually be required to provide compensatory educational services to that student. The Medicaid dollars reimburse, as I referenced, 62% of our students. It's not a direct one-for-one, but those are reimbursable dollars. If those dollars are gone, the services don't end. On your sheet, you can see what you received in Medicaid last year. In your role as local board members, I would significantly encourage you, strongly encourage you, to think about ways you can advocate around this, because this is not an executive order, this is a discussion from Congress. If Congress moves on this, it will happen. I have been deeply engaged with our senators, our state senators, as well as our local congressmen around this topic, explaining the impact it has to students, some of our most vulnerable students, thinking about our students with special needs. But I think this is something that has to be lifted up, because it's not just a line item on a page. These are families that are directly impacted by services, and these are families with students with special needs. So when we look at this, this is also around the topic of block grants. That's the other thing that you're hearing a lot about with respect to education. Here's what I want you to hear as a board. Be careful what you wish for, because this has divided the education community. Some would prefer block grants, which means here's your money, go spend it the way you would like. The struggle you're going to get into as soon as you receive block grants is you're not going to have a prioritization page which talks about the importance of things, for example, like early childhood or special education. If you don't have the discipline internally to think about the needs of students and where they're at, those dollars could quickly go to areas that become more politically driven, hot topics, than they could actually to where the student welfare would want to be. I'm not advocating to say that block grants could automatically be the worst thing ever. I'm just saying be careful, because deregulation, which is part of what they're discussing, comes at a cost. Now, why do I think this is being discussed? Partially because we've seen a significant reduction with respect to the U.S. Department of Education. In January, of this year, there were almost 4,500 employees at the U.S. Department of Education. Currently, there's less than 2,200. Somebody has to do that work. We are going to be asked to do more, potentially with less, moving forward. And so I say that because this is where it comes back to, what do we need to do right now? I'm not suggesting the executive orders haven't made us uncomfortable, and there aren't aspects to that that are real. But they do not carry the weight of law. And there's a tremendous amount of noise involved with that. My point is, stay focused on things that could be written into statute, which this budget could have a significant impact when we look at schools all the way down to the local level. I am deeply concerned with the political jockeying around this budget at this point in time, especially when we talk and translate it down to, this is how much it would cost your district, and this isn't a one-time, this would be ongoing.
So I'm guessing these conversations happen at roundtable with our superintendents, correct? Do these conversations also happen with special ed directors? Well, I guess I would start with special ed directors, and then I'm hoping then they filter down into their districts. So are these conversations also happening at that level?
So the special education directors, the Medicaid cuts have been a rather new discovery. We actually gathered this information just 2 weeks ago. If that says about where we're at as far as where our concerns have been, because they've grown significantly. So there was a seclusion and restraint conference last week that was held. There were 300 special education directors there. As part of that topic was actually around the impact of Medicaid. So I know that was at a statewide level, and that will filter down from there, but that happened last Wednesday. So this is still, it's been an area of concern, but now it's started to get real, and now we've actually tried to put together better information so that way people can understand what the impact might be. But I would expect there will be some more conversations directly around Medicaid here with our local special education directors in the very near future. But it is still, again, the last 2-3 weeks, this has been emerging that it continues to be in the crosshairs right now of the budget. We actually had Congressman Barrett's staff out a week and a half ago to walk through Hartwood and actually see the impact on students.
Him or his staff?
His staff, he was not available. He was in DC at that point in time, but I take the best I can get when I'm trying to advocate on behalf of kids.
Absolutely.
So is there a possibility that the whole special education budget from federal dollars could be cut as well?
So the Medicaid, this is where this gets really interesting. Our entire ISD budget is about $180 million. $18.6 million are federal funds in education, out of the education budget. $6 million come out of Health and Human Services, which is where Medicaid comes from. So when we look at the impact of what's there, it's a little over 24 million. I don't believe all $24 million would be impacted. In fact, if anything, the signs you see out of right now, as of today, right? The signs you see out of DC is that CTE continues to be an area that is, that there wants to be growth in because of the economic impacts. It's celebrated at this point in time for what it's doing and how it's having significant revival throughout the United States as more students are enrolling in CTE programs. So there's been no discussion with respect to Perkins funds in some of those areas. Some areas have been heavily discussed, like Medicaid. So it's difficult for me to pinpoint exactly where or when, and I think that's the other challenge as well, or to what depths where those impacts will be. So we'll make the best decisions based on the information we have for our June 30th budget. I've been around as an administrator long enough to remember prior to 2011 how budgets were done. If there are changes that happen after June 30th, we'll make budget amendments and try to make the best decisions we can. I would be shocked if all $6 million of Medicaid were impacted, but I would not be shocked if some amount of Medicaid wasn't impacted. That's Health and Human Services. Fun fact, I can go on this for a while, so I apologize. I don't want to take up the meeting, but When we think about the state departments that are there, the U.S. Department of Education is one of the more recent departments to have been added. It was actually codified in '79, started in May of 1980. Prior to that point in time, any of the dollars we're talking about were actually, almost all of them were in Health and Human Services prior to that point. So by executive order, you cannot eliminate the U.S. Department of Education. It actually takes an act of Congress. So I don't believe the U.S. Department of Education is under threat right now to be eliminated based on discussions with both senators and congressmen. But it could be de facto eliminated in the fact that it would not be effective. But those dollars then would actually matriculate back over to Health and Human Services. So it takes acts of Congress with respect to the dollars that have been apportioned. It's a weird time to be budgeting right now. We do the best we can with what we've got. Again, a lot of noise. I'm trying to focus in on what the biggest aspects are. Right now, I'd say Medicaid. Head Start is another area that has been impacted. It doesn't have as much of an impact on our budget. It has an impact on kiddos. There's a lot of kiddos in the area throughout the ISD that receive Head Start services. And the Chicago Head Start office has actually already been eliminated. Hopefully that answers your question. I'm not trying to be circuitous by any stretch of the imagination. I want to be as honest as what I can with what I have.
Any other questions?
Sorry, this isn't as exciting as what I would preferably be in here for, but
It's not,
these are hard
it's
times.
tough times for
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
I also want to give a shout out, Medicaid is, it's not just if students are eligible for Medicaid and we just, someone higher up looks at the IEPs and the Medicaid money just shows up in our pot. Our special ed staff have to, it's tedious. It's hard to imagine that our special ed staff, including our teachers, have to be paid to bill Medicaid. It's a pain. You have to go and find your students come on, students come off, you have to track it, you have to put it in. It's just a tedious thing. So this number could go up or down depending on what kids we have, but it is a lot of work for staff, extra staff, and it's not necessarily sometimes built into their day to do it. And, but even with saying that, it is money that we get to help offset some of those things. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it does make a huge dent and difference.
What's also unique about Medicaid, as well as any special education dollars, they're always provided a year in arrear. So when we talk about Medicaid specifically, it would be unknown what the impact could be, because if it was done immediately, we've actually already billed for services. Think about this school year, we won't get paid till next school year. So the dollars you see within that are from the year before. So technically, you should see reimbursements no matter what. It just depends on how Congress would decide to, if there were to be changes, how they would decide to make those changes, whether it be immediate and not then actually give you the dollars you were planning for, or whether it would be pushed out a year later and stair-stepped in.
Any other questions? So again, this was a lot of information. It is, not that the budget wasn't important, but this other piece is pretty important. It's how we run. So if you come up with questions or think of them, please let us know. Let myself or Adam know. We can get you to the right person to get those answered. Because we could be coming into some tough times, and community members are going to be asking, staff is going to be asking, and we want to make sure that we give some clear information. If you don't know, I really push them to Adam. You all good? Thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate all they do.
Appreciate it. Okay. I'm guessing the two of you are going to come together and do your books, right? Do your thing.
All right, so we'll start by talking about handbook updates. And if you were looking at our memo, I will tell you that I'd like to draw your attention to the first two in the chart and the last. So when it comes to non-discrimination policy, leaving during the school day, and attendance at high school athletic events, The reasons for these 3 changes were just really to either be consistent with the language in the other buildings' handbooks, or in the case of the second one, leaving during the school day, just updating the language to be more in line with how we really are receiving notification from families. It referenced notes, and no one's really sending in notes anymore, so we just wanted to change that language.
Remember too, the board had a policy on that was removed from the policy manual earlier this year, and it was thought that it would be better articulated at the buildings because their processes will look different based on the ages of their students.
Exactly.
And then the next piece is kind of in the middle of our memo. So I'll have you look at the birth certificates, immunizations, and proof of residency. And then there's the medical needs at school, and then joint custody and dual home situations. And all of the language that we updated there is just to reflect changes in our enrollment process, and specifically how our enrollment process is now done electronically. So we just wanted to update that information there. Any questions on those changes?
I just want to ask on the communication, I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right thing. So under home and school communication, where it says classroom teachers, there are a number of ways that you can communicate. Are classroom teachers letting their families know how, or is that just open to each teacher can make a decision? Does that make sense?
Which item are you talking about in the memo, Nancy?
I'm looking on page 13, and I think it's in the discovery handbook. It says homeschool communication. There are many ways to contact classroom teachers regarding questions you may have. Each teacher can be contacted by phone, email, letter, or in person. We encourage this communication and pride ourselves on being available to the community. So I just read, when I first was going through this, about how, like, leaving during the day, removing the language about notes. So do parents, like, if I read this, I would just say, I don't let the office know, I let the teacher know. So can it go both, so we're saying it can go both ways, just don't bring a note.
Absolutely. I would say the most common is that families are communicating with either the office or the classroom teacher, and in many cases both.
Okay.
Letting them know about the change. And then we have the new feature of the Pick My Kid when it comes to end of day things. So if there's been changes there, that app is now being very effectively used, and parents can update it throughout the day, and our teachers are checking that dashboard before they're dismissing students at the end of the day.
Pick Me Kid, or pick whatever that is just for the end of the day. So if I had to pick my student up at noon for a dentist appointment, I still have to call the office, call the teacher, like go through that normal process.
Yes, and one of the reasons that we didn't put the settings that way is because it would really require, it would assume that either someone in the office or the teacher is like monitoring throughout the day if there's been some change in plan, and that's just not realistic. So families still, for those earlier in the day things, reach out to the office, and then what the office will do is they'll either ask the parent to update the app, or they'll do it on behalf of them, which is really helpful for if Rebecca was expecting them at Kids Corner, or a bus driver was expecting them to step on a bus, then we've made sure that all of those stakeholders have been communicated with.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Perfect. Nice. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on handbook?
Thank you as always for the breakdown and allowing us to easily see where the changes are. It helps tremendously.
Great.
Yes, I really do like this format.
You wanna move on?
Yeah.
And her last update.
I know, it is. I know she's sad. I mean,
I
you
can see the
hear
smile on her face.
Her voice cracked a little. You don't have to do handbook anymore. She's, for people at home that can't see you, she's wiping away her tears.
I think I get to come back at least one more time, maybe to recommend a teacher
A
or two
teacher.
to you, so.
You can come back
I'm
whenever
just
you
saying
want.
about the handbook.
Oh,
The
just
last
in terms of
handbook.
handbook, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can
I
come
will,
back whenever you
I will ask Cassie to suggest this format to
Yes,
whoever
yes.
replaces me, that they continue on with that format. How's that?
Please,
Okay,
please do.
Awesome.
great.
Thank you very much for everything.
Yes.
Looks great.
All right, am I good to move on?
Yes?
All right,
Yep.
so we'll get started on the school improvement update. So starting with Discovery, it was a year of a lot of learning, a lot of growth, some new challenges. But this year was a big focus on conscious discipline. So I wanted to talk to you about that today. So what we did as a staff, and then some of the implementation process that we started. I also wanted to give you an update on our TLC program. This was our IBRR last year. If you remember, we started the program out of some needs. I think it opened when we returned from Thanksgiving break, in result from some needs that we had behaviorally in the building. And then our behavior specialist, we are coming close to the end of the year in our first year with her, so I wanted to give you an update on the work that we've been doing there as well. So we started year one of a 3 to 4 year plan with conscious discipline this year. So that started in August. With a full day PD with our conscious discipline coach, Dinah. And we had a great group with us. Obviously, our teachers were all present. It was part of our PD to kind of prepare for the start of the school year. But we also invited all of our special education paras across both campus, the entire elementary campus, and then also our WIN paras, our Young Fives paras were also invited, our lunchroom staff was invited, our new needs, and also our bus drivers. So we had a great group that were there for an entire day of learning. And it really focused on really providing that foundation in our classrooms, and then for our school community and school family. So it was a great time for us to be reminded. For some of us, it was a reminder and a refresher. Some of these topics that we discussed were things that we've learned along the way with Heather Lewis. And then for a good chunk of my staff who are new, or any of our paras, it was a great foundation that was set as well. In addition to that, we had 3 sessions with our conscious discipline coach. This was done in fall, winter, and then we just had one a few weeks ago in the spring. So this was a group that met with her. It was myself, and then we have a Champions of SEL committee at Discovery that met, and we kind of problem solved with our coach, talked about, rollout for our conscious discipline plan, in our year, what that would look like, and then any hurdles that we kind of came along the way. And then lastly, we had part of our year one adoption was a handling upset course, which was a series of eight videos that all focused on that adult first priority, and really laid out the foundation for conscious discipline. So just about every one of our professional development or staff meetings really centered around one of those videos as well. So we watched them together and then would pause it and have time to communicate and discuss together. Teachers also had access to this on their own, so they could go back and watch, or watch on their own time as well. The first year was really meant to be a focus on the staff. But as we got into the school year and we're meeting with our coach, we decided that we were ready to look at some implementation. So this was done in a variety of different ways. We had weekly social emotional learning with Mrs. Lewis, and she had like a 4-week layout for us. So the start of every first Monday of the month, we had Discovery Club that was led by Miss Lewis and Miss Durling. We started this towards the very end of last year and have been doing this very consistently all year. So it's the first Monday of every month. And it's a great opportunity for us to come together as a school family. We have a song now, and we've been able to bring in community members during that time. We had the fire department with us. Next week we have the library coming to talk to us about what's available at the library. But then also we bring in some of those conscious discipline concepts. So that's been a great addition. And then Miss Lewis also pushes into classrooms once a week, and then provides, for the times where she's not in the classroom and she's not at Discovery Club, she provides 2 video lessons that teachers use in the classrooms at their leisure during that week. So typically every Monday, we get a rollout of what the week looks like from her, and links and tons of resources, and it's a great wealth of knowledge, and she's able in all of those things that she does to really pull in those pieces of conscious discipline as well. We also, as a staff, implemented the Safekeeper and Wish Well ritual, which is part of conscious discipline. So that was a piece that we have really all made sure we were ready for, and it's in every single classroom. And then as part of that implementation as well, we looked at a reentry plan, and this has really started with just a handful of students, and we had some really good success with it. So then we have implemented it throughout the building. There is a basic outline of what the plan looks like, but then each grade level, knowing that the needs of their students are a little bit different, have altered that plan to meet the needs of their students. So that's been a really great way to help provide some consistency for students when maybe they've had to leave, or they needed a reset, or they needed a break, and they're coming back into that classroom. They know what to expect, teacher knows what to expect, staff member who's providing that support knows what to expect. It's been a really successful opportunity that ultimately allows the teacher to kind of reconnect with that child and hopefully move on with their day. And then last, we made some adjustments to our morning announcements as well. So that Wish Well component that I was talking about, we have that in our morning announcements in addition to the pledge and our buzzwords. And then in connection to what we are learning at Discovery Club and what we are teaching during our SEL times with Ms. Lewis or in the classroom, we also have some helpful behavior reminders that we provide in each week. It's connected to what our learning is in the classroom. And then our TLC room, we've had a lot of things to celebrate this year. We definitely took some time to really look at adjustments that we wanted to make to the program. Christy Shannon and her team have just done a really great job and have worked really, really hard in making sure that our students are getting the support that they need, and really making sure that this program has been successful. And we have seen a huge increase in our students' relationships with their general ed peers. We are seeing that specifically our first graders are in their general education setting 80% or more of the day. This is a huge increase from what they were experiencing last year as kindergartners. We have several students who have graduated from the TLC program. That's a huge win for us. And then this year we implemented bi-weekly TLC meetings where we can meet with administrator, with special education teacher, social worker, and we're able to have some time to collaborate specifically on some of the needs of the students in that program. And then Dr. Cook also joins us for that as well. We've seen a dramatic decrease in behaviors in the TLC room and for the students in the TLC room. And last year, or this year is the first year of Slumberkins. It was, I think, adopted and passed over the summer. And Slumberkins has been a hit. We see the little stuffed animals just about everywhere. It's been a great, very engaging curriculum that we've really seen the students love and are just doing a lot of learning through that curriculum, and the staff have really enjoyed having that as part of their curriculum as well.
How many kids do we have in this room?
5 students.
And is it kindergarten through second grade?
It's actually, we have some third graders too, so it's a program. It's a program that is at Explorer as well.
And for your bi-weekly meetings, does the regular ed teacher are they part of that?
They have not been. It is typically, I guess sometimes I don't think they have. They haven't
been a
this
part
year.
of, they haven't been a
No.
part of that meeting, but the lead teacher in the TLC classroom does set up regular meetings with the classroom teachers, with the gen ed classroom teachers, and the principals try to join those as well.
And then last is our behavior specialist. Kylie Densmore joined us this year, and we've really enjoyed her wealth of knowledge, and she's been a great addition to our school family. She's done a lot. I feel like this doesn't even like hit the tip of the iceberg. But primarily our focus has been on the small group interventions. She's been working really specifically on some targeted social, emotional, and behavioral interventions with small groups of students. She implemented lunch buddies, which support some of our students. Lunchtime and recess can be a really hard time for some of our kiddos. It's a unstructured time. Lots going on, so she's implemented a Lunch Buddies program that's been very successful and helpful. She's a member of our problem-solving behavioral support team. She's been doing some coaching with our teachers. She's provided a lot of support in writing and observing for our FBAs and our BIPs. She's done a lot of our more informal behavior plan development as well, and then is obviously a member of our crisis team, and has been an asset at helping with that. I'm trying to think. She also came to us with some ABA experience, so we rely on her heavily sometimes with some of our students with different behavioral needs in that aspect as well. So a busy year, and we look forward to next year looking at that year 2 implementation phase for conscious discipline.
And do we share the behavior specialist with
Little Hornets?
Little Hornets?
Mm-hmm. Yep, so she is at Discovery on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Little Hornets on Tuesday and Thursday.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll continue on the same theme then. I'd like to touch on the conscious discipline book study that Explore staff engaged in this year. Talk about the weekly social emotional learning lesson that's happening for all students. I also wanted to share something that I have found really helpful and I'm excited about, and that's the fact that we have begun a process for collecting data on social emotional wellness with our students, and then using that to inform Tier 2 interventions that we're able to provide. And say a little bit about how this connects with work that's been going on in the building for many, many years as it relates to PBIS. And lastly, just touch really briefly on math, which has an interesting connection to some of the SEL data that we've been getting from our students. So first of all, just in terms of the conscious discipline book study, we were aware of the fact that Discovery was really going to be digging in deep and making this multi-year commitment to learning about the philosophy of conscious discipline. And our staff very much also had the desire to continuously expand their toolkit and deepen their understanding of social emotional learning, best practice ways for supporting students with positive behaviors, and keeping in mind the impacts of trauma on the brain, and also, as has been referenced, the importance of self-care for staff as they engage in this really challenging work. And so knowing what Discovery was heading into, and also having a chance to kind of do a little preliminary look at conscious discipline, it seemed like it could be a really good next step for our building as well. And so we've had success in the past using a book study approach as part of our professional learning. And the team ultimately decided that we would do that this year. I should say, if you've never seen the Conscious Discipline book, it's big. It's over 300 pages and a lot of information. And so we really tried to plan thoughtfully for how we could approach this as a book study this year. Ultimately, what we decided to do is to break it into segments, have some of our professional learning time for our staff just reading and reflecting independently. And then we had 4 times across the year, as early as August was our first time. And then in November and February and March on those PD days to come together and to reflect on the different sections of the book. Heather Lewis did an amazing job of facilitating this book study. And one of the things that I really appreciated that she said to teachers right from the very get-go is, you're not going to just be able to dig into this and learn everything that's in here, but let's think of this as kind of a first exposure. As we're reading through, let's think about the things that are really resonating with us, from our experiences to the practices that we're already implementing in our building. Let's look for areas where maybe our thinking is being pushed or challenged a little bit, and maybe we need to have some conversation around that. And let's look for some things that we might potentially want to try out in our classrooms and in other parts of the school. And so I think with that kind of relaxed approach, the teachers were ready to sort of embrace and dive into the book study. And as we got into it, one of the things that came across to us really early on, and we were already talking about it in August in that first section of reading, is how it approaches conscious discipline from this idea of really having a school family. And that school family is something that we really tried to highlight those opportunities. First, as a staff, what you see in that picture there is a school family board that we keep in our office, where our staff members have opportunities to bring their own family in and have it there and keep it close to them during the day, which is really important to them. But then also our school family has celebrations and engages in things, and we add those things up there as well. And teachers really carrying that over to their own classrooms. One of the things that we know is just the importance of students feeling safe and feeling a sense of connection. Conscious discipline isn't about which teachers control their students the best. It really is about teachers building those caring, connecting relationships with students so that they feel safe and they're open and they're ready to learn. And part of that learning is math and is reading and writing and all the other academic areas, but really thinking about behavior is a thing that we learn too. And I think one of the things I'm most proud of is how I'm really hearing the language used around our building this year of teachers having a conversation when a student has had kind of a behavioral issue, and they'll be talking with them and saying, you haven't learned how to do this yet. And so we don't hold it against students that they're struggling with their math learning or with learning how to read, and we're really trying to bring that same idea to behavior. This is something that we're going to work with you on. We're going to help you to learn this. And I've just kind of highlighted up there some of the some of the practices from the book that, as I surveyed teachers recently about some of the things that they've been trying out and some of the takeaways from year one, just listing some of those there, and Cassie referenced many of those in her presentation as well. And like all good things, it's nice when you don't feel like this is another new thing, but it feels connected and embedded in the work that you're already doing. And I think something else that I've appreciated and our staff has appreciated is the way it connects to things that have already been important to us. So that idea of making sure staff are adequately cared for so that they can be regulated in supporting students, and finding opportunities to embed mindfulness into our daily practice around the classroom. If you look at the next slide, you actually see one of our classrooms there engaging in a practice that happens every morning. And that's the other thing, teachers recognizing the importance of just kind of morning routines and rituals and end of day routines and rituals. And that's another part of that safety, and students come in and there's just an expectation. They know they're going to be welcomed in, they know how their day is going to start. And in this one particular classroom, part of that morning routine just involves some mindful movement and getting themselves ready before they even think about diving into the learning of the day. Really focusing on treating our classmates as school family members, and looking for opportunities to say and to do kind things for one another. And there's a couple of examples up there as well. And I just wanted to include the quote up there from one of the teachers. As I mentioned, I had a chance to just kind of quickly survey and get a little bit of feedback reflecting on what we did and where they'd like to see us go next in terms of conscious discipline. And just, I really loved that idea of how it no longer feels like it's an obstacle to teaching, but an important and expected part of the elementary curriculum. And that's really how we're looking at it. I appreciated what Jason had to say earlier about just the need as it pertains to wellness supports for students. And I think we are really being so mindful in our district of trying to the degree that we realistically can, be proactive and get ahead of some of this stuff by providing this learning and supports for our students. Another piece that has really been great is to see how the quality of a Tier 1 social emotional learning program for all students has really kind of solidified. It's something that we've been working on over the last few years, and I feel like this is the first year where it just really feels strong and consistent in terms of its practice and implementation. So Heather Lewis is either she can't get into every class every week. So every student, every classroom is getting an opportunity to have a push-in with her at a minimum of one time a month. And then on those off weeks, they're getting the video lessons that she has developed and shared out with the teachers. And as Cassie was referencing, every Monday, you open up your email, it's there from Heather, and she's listing out what you can expect, whether she's coming into your classroom or she's sending you a resource to use with your classroom that week. And we know from all kinds of research that you can't intervene your way out of an issue. You have to first make sure that you're providing a quality Tier 1 experience for all learners to start with. Then you start talking about tiered supports, and I'm really excited about the progress that we've made in that regard, so I wanted to make sure that I highlighted that. Heather and our school social workers brought to us this year a panorama survey, and in the first semester, all of the students at the elementary level participated in taking this survey. And the thing that's exciting is we love to be data informed, and we are constantly using our data, our NWEA data and other data points to support our students with academic intervention. And this is the first time that we really had some meaningful data that we could use to support us with some social emotional learning intervention. intervention. And so what happened for the first time at Explorer this year is at our winter data wall meetings, where Pam Daniels, our MTSS coordinator, is meeting with grade level teams, and they're looking at that data, and they're deciding when we get to our win time, our what I need time every day, and our interventionists are working with small groups of students, working on comprehension interventions, decoding interventions, math interventions, whatever the case might be. We now were able to add in for the second semester that each grade level has 2 days a week where Colleen Feeney, our social worker, is meeting with an SEL WIN group. And so it was really exciting to get that off the ground and see that get going in the second semester. And when Colleen is working with those students, she is using lessons that are aligned with one or more of the CASEL competencies. She shared with me that she's primarily in those sessions working with groups of students. One of the areas in the data that really stood out was the need for helping some of our students to really develop that growth mindset. And also practicing some of those mindful practices, which you see a little bit on the right-hand side there, that can help to support well-being, and a nice connection back to our zones of regulation learning that we've been doing for a few years, helping students to really kind of be aware of the emotional zone that they're in, and then having an opportunity to practice with peers how to work through some of those challenging feelings. So just like we want to be able to provide that small group tier 2 support for students when they need it in an academic realm, it's really nice that we're now able to do that in an SEL realm as well too. And then kind of connecting it to work that's been happening in the building ongoing for many years now. We, back pre-pandemic, used to have our weekly Explorer Club meetings where we'd start out the starts of the week, and the entire Explorer building would come on down to the cafeteria, and we'd have a morning meeting. And there were a lot of real positives about that. When the pandemic occurred, we made some changes and we switched to a virtual meeting, a screencast that I would create each week. And then afterwards, teachers decided, you know what, that actually worked really well because we weren't locked into everybody having to adjust their schedule to be at this meeting at the same time. We can show the screencast to our students at a time that fits well with our schedule. We can pause things, we can talk about them. And so that's actually something that we have carried on with. And so in this weekly screencast, it's a combination of celebrations, able to bring in different learning opportunities, particularly when we're seeing some needs in our building, maybe some of the behavioral expectations that we're needing to reinforce. And also still having an opportunity to shout out and recognize really positive behaviors. So you've known about our buzz tickets for years, and that's something that still happens. And Ms. Grimes, our RTC expert, she gets on the screen, she hops on each week, and she celebrates some of the buzz ticket winners, so students have that opportunity to hear their name and get that special recognition. We, a few years ago, started something called the Hornet Award, where we can single out a student for who's been making some exceptional choices and has been nominated by a staff member to receive the Hornet Award. And then we had a kind of an exciting thing happen this year where we were offered the opportunity to have a signed basketball from Coach Izzo, and I thought a little bit about how we might use that, and it just happened to coincide when we were having a lot of issues with kind of like sportsmanship issues on the playground, sometimes in the Fit for Life classes. We have a really competitive group of kids, and sometimes behaviors get the best of them, and so we thought, these are some of the things we want to be teaching more explicitly about, and we added in a sportsmanship award, and so the signed basketball, which came with a little display stand, has become a traveling trophy, and we can shout out students each week that have been nominated for some of the ways that they're showing kindness and sportsmanship, whether it's in a Fit for Life class or maybe in a team sport out on the playground and so forth, and that's been a nice addition there as well. And then I just want to say that the more we learn, the more we look at our responsible thinking process and just the resource that Aubrey and other staff members provide to students. And we're always examining are the ways that we're supporting students in that space and the strategies that we're using remaining consistent with the new things that we're learning. And so we're keeping that a priority as well. And then you might be wondering why I threw math into a presentation about SEL, but I wanted to share with you that when we got some of the CASEL data back, there were two questions that really stuck out to me. One was, what can teachers or other adults at school do to better help you? And another was, thinking about everything in your life right now, what feels the hardest? And in both of those questions, one of the most frequent responses was math. And we know that math is something that our students feel stressed about. I was just coincidentally walking through the hallway one day last week, and I saw Ms. Grimes kind of with her arm around a student, and she was tearful, and I just kind of hung around to listen in a little bit on what the conversation was about, and it was, she was taking one of our high-stakes math assessments. I wasn't sure if it was M-STEP or if it was NWEA, because we're doing a blend of both right now, but she was feeling really overwhelmed, and she just needed kind of some reassurance that, yeah, it can feel stressful and hard sometime, and Aubrey was able to give her that little bit of a break before she get her regulated a little bit and then get back to the task. But that's one of the reasons that I'm so glad that we have been able to continue to offer the before and the after school math tutoring. We have examined, Pam Daniels and I have dug in a little bit, and we've shared previously with Adam that when we track those students that are participating in it, the growth that we see in NWEA scores. And more informally, I can just tell you that when I'm walking by classrooms, whether it's before school or after school, and I'm just moving through the building, the joy and the engagement and the happiness and the disappointment in students when they find out that for one reason or another the teacher isn't going to be available to meet with their math group, it's really been so. I think there's a lot of that connection and relationship building and safe feeling, as much as there is an opportunity to get some math support. And then I just left you a little bit of information there. We had 12 teachers on our staff this year who were able to participate in offering tutoring, and we've had 65 students that have participated. So looking ahead, also part of my survey to staff is wanting some feedback on if continuing with conscious discipline is something that they want to do next year. We know that this will have to just be one component. We made it a very deep dive of our professional learning this year. Next year we will be implementing a new core math program, and I know that will take a lot of time that the staff will be working on, but they still said it's something that they want to continue with. And the things that they specifically identified would be having an opportunity to choose specific sections of the book to have another look at for some further review and discussion. Having Heather assist them with discussing some of the practices to add in, and some that maybe we have some current practices that we would phase out as a result of our learning. Continuing to always look at our responsible thinking process in the context of this new learning. And something that came up many, many times in the feedback is learning more about the work that's happening in Discovery so that we can complement it and build upon it as those students make their way to us. We want to continue with that quality Tier 1 SEL that's being provided. Hopefully expand what we just got started with the Tier 2 SEL interventions. And we're also really hoping that math intervention will be able to continue as well. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions?
Very thorough.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you both very much.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you. school.
like my job seems a little easier now.
I'm sorry, say that
I feel
again?
like my job feels a little easier now.
As a parent?
As a parent, yeah, in every way.
Yeah.
Yeah, parenting, purchase of classroom furniture.
So later tonight, you'll be considering the approval of the middle school furniture. The high school has followed the same process as the middle school, bringing in multiple vendors, giving staff an opportunity to sample, look through the different options, and then make their recommendations in terms of what they would like to purchase at the high school. This was again based and prioritized off a furniture audit of the existing classroom furniture in the building that took place back in the fall. As you can see, the high school is recommending a blend of two different vendors. Both have certain products that would fit different places of the high school better, and therefore would be a little mix of items from both vendors. There are some of the classroom furniture options over here on the right side of the board in boardroom, and then for some reason the table and a chair that would also be part of that. That's way in the back there. So you get a chance to take a look and see some of the options that will be getting moved into, obviously pending your approval, into the high school next year.
And are these all replacing the majority of what we have at the high school, or only in certain areas of the high school?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to use the word majority. It's based on the result of the audit. So we went through each classroom and we looked at what the existing status of the existing furniture was. And then based on that, made a determination that we had like a ranking system and it got prioritized. But it might not be the majority, but it's many of the spaces. And part of that's in keeping, just like the middle school over the last several years. Some rooms have gotten new furniture. Run some pilots in some other rooms, and in some places the stuff they have is still holding up pretty well. So it just kind of depended on what the need was. The high school is also looking to address with this some of the common spaces, so such as like the math science pods, kind of those open areas in those classroom areas, putting some different items that are more conducive to collaborative learning and working in small groups that typically takes place in those spaces. So. The middle school will be probably coming back to you next year with sort of the same idea to address some of their common spaces, or maybe even change some of the non-classroom spaces into some different configurations with different furniture. The high school is trying to do all of it at once with this one bid, and that's why you'll see there, or this one proposal, that's why they're looking at multiple vendors to get that accomplished.
And these would be at the beginning of school?
Well, much like we found out with our lockers, we're kind of at the mercy, and our quarter zips for the staff, we're kind of at the mercy of manufacturing lead times. The understanding is that they would be, but I wouldn't want to guarantee it. We'll just kind of see how this all comes into play, and if we have to adjust, we'll push the timeline to the right. But the key part will be getting the order in, and then we can determine if we need to make an audible on when the installation occurs. Key thing will be not like throwing away the old stuff or recycling the old stuff until the new stuff's there, obviously.
Are these most of the desks, the different types that teachers are gonna, so they're for classrooms? Is there a mix? Could teachers do like half of the tall and half of the short, or did most teachers just pick one?
Well, I think
What?
some of these, like the black one, I think those are adjustable, so I think there's there's multiple heights for some of those. I think you can see
Looks like that one.
the push pins there, where you can raise them and lower them. Yeah.
Nice.
So I think that was kind of the idea, and if you look at some of the flexible seating pilots we have, you'll see students can go in and they'll adjust the heights of the furniture based on their preference, and so that was a part of the concept they were looking at.
Nice. Is that it? Furniture. Are there any questions about the high school furniture? Okay. Board policies. I'm not sure which one of you want to start.
Yeah, like I said, we focus primarily on financial policies. So you'll notice the majority there are full rewrites from Troon. I will say, Adam assured us that as we went through each one of these, Sarah has also reviewed these and signed off on them. The two that are under the revision section, the first one is the student representative on the board. So that went back to the committee where we discussed it. Ultimately, we decided that it was probably better to have the policy rather than strike it in the event that at some point in the future, if we wanted a student representative, the work was already done. The change is the current policy says that we will have a student representative. That's obviously not reflective of the fact, so that has been adjusted. The second under the revision section is student records in FERPA. The changes there are pretty minor, but mostly just focusing on increasing privacy around those records.
So that has to do with the directory information, which is publicly available information. There were two areas there, you'll see on page 137, 138, that we, the committee determined weren't necessary as public information and opted to recommend removing those.
And parents still have the right to, is it at the beginning of the year when they're filling out paperwork to opt out of that?
Mhm. Correct.
I do appreciate the policy committee looking at the student representation. That was kind of me that wanted that to go back. I also like taking out the will have versus, like, if the opportunity comes up or someone shows an interest. So thank you for re-looking at that. Any other questions on any of the policies? Okay, we'll move all of that to be voted on at our next meeting. Can I please get a motion for our consent calendar?
Move that the Williamston Board of Education approve the minutes for the regular meeting held on April 7th, 2025 as presented.
Second.
Is that Sarah, Heather, Sarah? So we have a first Dave, second Sarah. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we do not have any roll call items. We have a bunch of separate action items. Can I have a motion to approve the technology purchases, please?
Make a motion that the Williamston Community Schools Board of Education approve the purchase of 225 HP Fortis Chromebooks and 89 Chrome management licenses from Intercomp. The total cost of this purchase will not exceed $74,000, with monies coming from the general fund.
Second. So that was Chris, and who second, Sarah or Heather? So first Chris, second Heather. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Can I please have a motion for the desktop and laptop purchases, please?
Move that the Williamston Community Schools Board of Education approve the purchase of 87 HP ProDesk desktop computers from Intercom for a cost not to exceed $63,000. Also approve the purchase of 4 HP 460 laptop computers from Sehi for a cost not to exceed $3,000. Money for these purchases will come from the general fund.
Second.
Okay, so first Dave, second Sarah. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Can I have a motion for the projectors and screen purchases, please?
Move the Williamston Community Schools Board of Education approve the purchase of 64 Epson PowerLight projectors from CDWG with a total cost not to exceed $99,000. Also to purchase 45 Draper Luma screens from Sehi with a total cost not to exceed $21,000. Monies from these purchases will come from the sinking fund.
Second. Was that you, Heather? She is so quiet. So first Dave, second Heather. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that carries. Can I please have a motion for the high school fire alarm replacement?
Make a motion that the Williamston Community Schools Board of Education approve the purchase and installation of a new fire alarm system for the Williamston High School from Certisite at a cost not to exceed $291,483.21. Monies for this purchase will come from the sinking fund.
Second.
All right, so first Chris, second Dave. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Can I please have a motion for the middle school classroom furniture?
Make a motion that the Williamston Community Schools Board of Education approve the purchase of furniture for the middle school from Weiser at a cost not to exceed $207,195.98, plus 20% for freight, installation, and assembly. Monies for this purchase will come from the 2024 bond.
Second. So first Chris, second Heather. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May I please have a motion for the tractor?
Move that the Williamston Community Schools Board of Education approve the purchase of a John Deere compact utility tractor from Hudson's at a cost not to exceed $39,157.89. Monies from this purchase will come from the 2024 bond.
Second.
Is that Sarah? Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And our last motion, can I have a motion for our regular meeting dates for the 2025-2026 school year, or calendar?
I make a motion that the Williamston Community Schools Board of Education approve regular meeting dates for the 2025-2026 school year as presented.
Second. Okay, first Sarah, second Heather. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We do have some resignation letters there. We just have some resignation letters there. I'm gonna open it up to any citizen comments. And we don't have any. Board member reports and requests. I just quickly have a couple. Ice cream social is May 22nd. I did reach out to her and said that we would be willing to participate. She said, great. I don't know what game we're doing. So I know. I do have prizes, and I am not sure I'm gonna be able to attend, but I think we at least, Dave, you said you could be there for sure? All right, so, I do have prizes, so I will get them to whoever if I can't be there. But, I did reach out to her again to say, could you let me know what game we're doing? And I haven't heard, so I'm a little nervous that, she could have given the games away, which would be fine, totally fine. So I'll let you know. Next, get to the scholarship. And then I have a request for the policy committee. We, a couple years ago, passed a curriculum policy, and there was some discussion around what was considered curriculum. I have, through the last year, have realized that it seems that we are a little confused on what we consider curriculum. So I'm not asking for the policy to be rewritten. I'd like the policy committee to look at it, but I think it needs to go to the policy committee, decide if you're gonna keep it, add on to it, look at Troon's policy, whatever you wanna do. We can, again, keep what we have, but then it does need to come back here for discussion because we all need to be on the same page, because we are not. And we're not on the same page with what administration thinks, with what each other thinks, what we're telling staff, what staff thinks. So I've never had a policy that I feel like is this confusing for us. And when we're talking about curriculum, I think we should be on the same page. So not that this has to be done in a hurry, but I do think we need to kind of have it go back to the policy committee, come back to us for a discussion, at least so we are on the same page of what curriculum means. Anything else?
Our last ISOA meeting is Wednesday and it's virtual. There's not an in-person option for this meeting, so if you'd like to attend, let me know.
What time is that?
8 o'clock, and it usually goes until 9:30.
We also have Teacher Appreciation Week, so any of those times, if you could come, that'd be great. If not, no pressure. If there isn't anything else, I would like to thank you. We're getting into the spring meetings where they're getting a little long, and this was a lot of information. So again, if you have any questions, let's make sure we get them answered. But otherwise, I will have a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
So first Sarah, second Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Everybody have a